Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and sorry about the admittedly vague title of this video. Hopefully the thumbnail picture suggested what books I'm going to discuss, but naming all of them would have made for a very long title, and it actually captures the spirit of my pursuit of the last 2 weeks. I found some Paul Auster at some charity shops in my town, and I was like, hey, some Paul Auster, let's read some Paul Auster. Paul Auster is a writer that I read extensively several years ago, back in 2011, 2012, when I was starting to get seriously into contemporary American fiction, but which then I did not really read at all for several years, and I've recently been rereading some of his stuff, and I'd like to read and to explore the rest of his oeuvre, and he definitely is one of those writers whose books tend to follow the same pattern, or at least to fall into the same categories and subgenres. He often writes books with, not always, but often with men of letters as main characters. That is definitely the case with the 3 books I'm going to discuss today, and they usually find themselves in some bizarre and quirky predicament that sometimes even break the boundaries of probability, likelihood, or even possibility, and this usually allows him to discuss some broad philosophical themes such as the nature of chance, or the nature of evil, or the way stories influence the real world, and the purpose of storytelling and narrative in people's lives. My guess with Auster is that he read, I don't know, maybe the Don Quixote, or maybe some Cortázar or some Calvino when he was like 5 or 6, and he went, whoa, and he never fully recovered from the experience, and he has been reeling ever since. The description I gave you is especially appropriate, I'd say, for Oracle Knight, first book I'm going to discuss, and possibly the most Austerish, the most canonical, if we take the rest of his oeuvre as a standard among these 3. Many of Auster's books, even those that concern themselves with rather mundane and quotidian events, they tend to start from a peculiar incipient and starting point. Say someone has just blown themselves up, people get invited to the mansions of eccentric rich people, whereas Oracle Knight, well, it starts in a very low-key way. I'd be hard-pressed actually to give you a summary of it. A guy who is recovering from an injury of sorts buys himself a notebook. That's it. But behind this apparently simple and straightforward, even plotless plot, there are layers upon layers of mystery, both in terms of the characters of this book. This book is peopled by very interesting characters, each with peculiar lives, in terms of what the main character's true relationship with these people is, what mysteries are they all hiding, because they clearly are, and what's up with this notebook. One beautiful thing about Oracle Knight is that it walks the line between, I want to say, between realism and paradox, between this very straightforward plot about literary people living in New York City and an almost magical take on that old concept that words have power, that words can alter the world. There's an interesting and very good reflection in here, lots of quotable lines in Oracle Knight, a reflection on the fact that words are too powerful to be given to writers because they love them too much, and so they hardly know how to handle them wisely. And I love books of this kind that walk this line between 2 worlds that can't possibly coexist but somehow do. And one thing I always appreciate is when the realist strand of the narrative, as in Oracle Knight, is somehow by a sleight of hand is made to be even more interesting than this paradoxical, even borderline supernatural strand of the novel. And by the way, don't expect people to walk out of mirrors in this book. It's not a fantasy novel in any possible way. It's all kept on a more abstract and philosophical level, but I would still count it among Auster's literary games, among his quirkier books. One thing I have to say about Oracle Knight, and I think it's related to that idea I mentioned, that I'd be hard-pressed to give you a summary of the novel, even a spoilery one, is the fact that this is a novel that kind of appears like it lacks a purpose. At first it seems to be going in the direction of being another of Auster's books about a writer writing a story that's going to interact with his own life, and we're going to discuss two of those in a second, but then it changes direction, and even later it's never too clear what the point of the whole narrative is, and this book does a bizarre trick by which it's a 210 page book, and by the time you get to page like 195, by the time you're like 10-15 pages away from the end, it goes, all you read so far was just a prologue to what I'm going to say, to the real story that's coming up. And some people are going to find that fascinating, some people are going to be turned off by that. Auster, in general, in my opinion, is one of those writers that truly fascinates certain readers. Maybe some of his books, like the New York trilogy, Music of Chance, have a broader appeal than others, but he's also one of those writers that some people just cannot stomach, cannot really appreciate too fully. It's one of those reasons why I believe it's common knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he is more famous in certain countries than others. Say he is among Italy's most appreciated contemporary American writers, but I believe that in America itself, maybe he doesn't yet have the status of people such as Don DeLillo or Philip Roth, some contemporaries of his. This is also a book with a surprising amount of narrative ballast, is an expression that I believe I actually stole from the book itself, for a book of this scope, from a story of this length. What I mean is that you get extensive footnotes describing the backstory of certain characters or how other characters meet, which gives you an insight into the lives of these people that you don't necessarily need in order to appreciate a story of this scope. And again, I'm not criticizing the book. I appreciate that, but I understand as that the fact that to some people that is going to make the experience maybe a bit slow, maybe a bit too dense. And finally, my one complaint, I guess, is that the characters in this book are truly snobbish, and they look down on people who don't read and maybe just watch television, and on Hollywood screenwriters or Hollywood directors, and on genre fiction. And the book at one point bashes H.G. Wells for whatever reason, and of course that's the narrator talking. It's not like Paul Auster, the actual writer, is saying those things, but I didn't pick up from the text necessarily say that the text was criticizing the narrator for its opinion, if you get my meaning. It didn't seem to me that the text was trying to come across as this narrator is crass because he looks down upon genre fiction and science fiction. But hey, I may be wrong, and also it's kind of a personal complaint, because I love genre fiction and I love H.G. Wells. The second book I'm going to discuss is Men in the Dark, which is and is not your average Paul Auster book. Men in the Dark starts from a surprisingly similar point as Oracle Knight, with a man of letters who has just sustained an accident and who is telling himself a story, but then does something completely different. Broadly speaking, this book is concerned with the nature of evil, with the nature of darkness as a philosophical concept, with the greatest historical tragedies, and with the great personal tragedies each person has to go through during their life, which was also a very important and key theme in Oracle Knight, and that here is handled surprisingly well and in a very nuanced way for a 150-page book, for a very slender novel. I recently finished rereading Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, which is also concerned with the worst tensions and impulses human beings are capable of, but deals with those themes in the most complicated way possible. Which is good in a way, you know, there are different handling. Here instead you find those themes dealt in very, very simple terms, in the terms you could use in a conversation with a relative of yours. But that doesn't mean that they're treated superficially at all. This is not just a book of truisms, of trite idioms, life's a bitch, shit happens. Instead it goes much deeper. In terms of plot, in terms of its narrative, the brilliant thing about Men in the Dark, in my opinion, is that about halfway through, 2/3 of the way in, it does a sort of backflip, and it turns from being a let's say a parallel story that deals both with the guy telling himself a story and with the story itself, with a rather interesting dystopian take on early 21st century America. Instead, it changes from that kind of double narrative into something else entirely. And this surprised me a lot, because I admit that for the first 100 pages I was enjoying the experience very much, but I was also a bit bored maybe by the fact that I believed I could already see what was going to happen. I was like, yeah, I know what's going to happen, I know how the two storylines are going to collide with one another, and instead the book surprised me. And it's not like the twist I'm talking about is any sort of, I don't know, very flashy moment where characters step out of a book, or where the, Paul Auster pops up, as he sometimes does, and you're like, oh no, but what about the ontology? No, it's actually something much more simple, and it's something I'm not going to talk about in detail because you'll have to experience it yourself. What I'll say is that it made the reading experience so much more interesting and relatable and humane too. If you're on the fence about reading Paul Auster because you're not sure you're into literary games, maybe you've read some, again, some Calvino or Borges or Cortázar, and you are, or some postmodernism, and you're not too sure whether that's the stuff for you, probably Men in the Dark might be a good entry point, because sure, it shows you how Auster likes to talk about the nature of narratives. This is a book also about the nature of escapism, of using narratives as a way of escaping your troubles and your personal difficulties and tragedies. It shows Auster's concerns on that front, but it is also a deeply and fully emotional novel. More, I would say, than the other books I'm describing today. Travels in the Scriptorium is the exact opposite. It's 100% a literary game. It's very gimmicky in that sense. You realize what's going on probably about 20 pages into the book, probably before, if you're brighter than me. It's yet another parallel narrative with two strands, one concerned with a writer, one concerned with another dystopian vision of America, and I don't want to talk much about the plot or what the relation between the two is, because I'd spoil you the fun with this book, and I believe that hearing the penny drop, getting there, finding out about the gimmick at the heart of the whole thing, is part, if not all, of the fun to be had here, not because the novel doesn't have any other merit, but because, once again, it's a literary game. So I'll just mention that this is a book for Auster fans. It doesn't make sense to even approach Travels in the Scriptorium if you haven't read at least several of Auster's previous novels. At the very least, I would say read the New York trilogy, Oracle Knight, Leviathan, maybe The Music of Chance. But yeah, in truth, between the two of us, read anything else by Auster before you even touch this book. And it's supposed to be a book of that type. It's supposed to be 100% for fans, real hardcore Auster fans. And in that sense, it's not like I'm bashing the book. For what it does, it's perfect. Considering what its purpose it's supposed to be. It's truly, it's pulled off beautifully. It's just that, once again, it doesn't make sense to read it if you're not a huge hardcore Auster fan. If you are an Auster fan, if you appreciate what it does, if you like his writing, if you like his early novels, Oracle Knight is also a must-read. Men in the Dark is an excellent novel if you want to see Auster do something slightly different from what he usually does, and you want to see him do it masterfully. I enjoyed all three books a lot. Men in the Dark was probably my favorite of the three. And what about future Auster reads? I'd like to explore those among his early novels that I still haven't touched. Probably Mr. Vertigo and also Brooklyn Follies. And I also very much like to read 4321 in the future, but since that's an immense volume, I don't know how soon I'll be able to do that. Thank you as always, guys, for watching this video. I hope it was useful. If you've read these books or you're interested about them, let me know about your experiences in the comments below. As always, in a second I'll put links on the screen to others of my reviews, maybe to my recent review when I talk about my rereading of the New York trilogy, and do some other thing I filmed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.